Thanks for clicking on the video. Like, subscribe, and share if you find this useful or interesting. Today we're gonna make this. And here's what happened. I did the final sorting of the elements and I created view sets. The view sets is everything over here. And these are just linked copies that will update automatically, and they will let you see the effect of changes in the workspace. What is the workspace? The workspace is right here. This is where we've been working so far. And right now I'm showing the layouts, the control sketches. There's a thing called the primary setup, but I can skip it and I can just go to the primary surfaces and curves. And then there's a thing called the blending setup, but I can skip it easily and I can just see my final surfaces. Most of what we need to edit the entire model is in the layouts and the control sketches. The only other thing we're going to edit often is in the blending setup, and that is the point on curve cuts. So these are the things we're going to look at most of the time, and now they've been grouped. Where we left things off, we had this, and I was in the middle of editing this sketch. If you remember, this is how many objects we had in this. Basically, we had completely filled up this tree. And doing things in this order was necessary to learn what the elements are. But there's problems with it. Number one, it's too long, but that's not the only problem with it. When I was editing this sketch, the sketch wasn't doing exactly what I wanted. I needed to edit the constraints, and it was very painful because the model was slow. The model was slow because all these surfaces are at high quality, so it's taking a long time to update. So what I need to do to fix that is I need to select all these surfaces and change their resolution. But they're in 3 separate folders, so it's annoying to find them. Now, I have all the final surfaces in a single folder. If I want to edit their resolution, it's much faster to find them. So, this is what we're going to end up with. Let's get to it. Okay, so here we were. This is pretty much exactly as it was last time, except I had this open. Okay, so I'm going to close that for now. Let's do it manually one more time. Select all these surfaces and change this back to 0.5. See, because going backwards usually doesn't take a long time to update because nothing has to be recalculated. So just go 0.5. This time it decided to check some things, but it went very quickly. And finally the last ones, right here, 0.5. Takes a moment, but not that much. Okay, so now that I've done this, editing this sketch won't be so bad. So I'm gonna do it very quickly. I'm gonna delete this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 seconds. This is still taking quite a bit of time. So let's be careful about how we do this. Let me move this back to here. And by the way, this sketch went crazy last time because I said I was gonna type 50 in a dimension and I typed 500. So yeah, that caused problems. Let me use a section view. And now that I've brought these back closer, I'm gonna make these parallel again. Six, 7, okay. And now I'm going to redimension this guy. And I'm going to make it 100. Huh. It's still unhappy. Okay. I did the parallel too early. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 9 seconds. I need to bring this in some more to make it clear that these are not parallel. Now dimension again, 100. This is still slow. I should actually bring down the resolution again. But remember how annoying it was to select all these surfaces and change the resolution because they were separate? Let's finish this up. Okay, let's say that we're done for now. What we want to do is we want to go back to the original, not this copy, and we want to fix the original a little bit more and organize it before we start making copies. So let's do it. Take the entire copied thing and delete it. Delete everything. Okay, here I'm going to do a save as, and it's going to be called 56. And I'm going to call this the final setup. Okay. So this one still has the surfaces at a nice and low resolution, so it works fast. Okay. What I want to do right now, how does the final setup look? Well, the final setup, let's think about the end. When we've done all this work, what do we want? We want our final surfaces. So final surfaces underscore 000. Okay. Fix the typo right here. And what goes in here? We're going to take the restored surfaces, the blended surfaces, and the corner blend surfaces. So now, first of all here, I can turn all of these on and off very quickly. These other elements that were in between, we had to look at them in order. We had to look at them and create them in order. This was very useful to show you how to create this restored surfaces. And that was much faster than creating these blended edge surfaces because we had more work to do with the grids. And then the grids to fill in the corners, there was even more steps before we could do this. So it's important that you see it. But now that we've done it, we can just take the final result right here. So I'm going to take that and put it in my patch. And because I drop it in at the top, it goes right to the bottom. Okay, so that was the end point. But how does this model really start? It starts with layouts and then control sketches. And here, layouts, 0, 0, 0. And then sketches. Control sketches. So these layouts go all the way to the top, and I sure hope FreeCAD is going to let me place them correctly. It did, fantastic. So in these layouts, I'm going to put the patch layouts. We're going to have more later, so these layers are valid. I'm going to take these control sketches and put them right below the layouts. And I'm going to take the control sketches and put them in there. Right now, we just have the 3Ls folder in it, but we're going to have more. We're going to have different ones. When we make the edges 3D, we're going to have different types here. So we have our final surfaces. What is another really important middle step? A really important middle step is seeing the full curves and the full surfaces. And I actually call this the primary curves and surfaces. And this is something that we want to look at by itself and make it look good before we do the blending. But in between the control sketches and the curves and the cubic surfaces, there's a bunch of polys and grids that we need. And I call this the primary setup. So right below my control sketches, I'm going to put the primary setup. What goes in the primary setup? The control polygons. Then we skip all this stuff and we go straight to the control grids, because these only depends on the control polygons. So I put these in here. And then I made secondary grids based on the first one. So these go right below. So I'm going to turn all these off. And this is the primary setup. I'm going to turn off the final surfaces, turn off these guys. This is the primary setup. Turn this off, turn this off. Layouts, control sketches, primary setup. Okay, now I want my primary curves and surfaces. And so they're going to go right below the primary setup. What goes in here is the curves, the full curves, and the full surfaces. When we created our original curve, cut in 3 to copy paste, that was to benefit from copy pasting and not have to create a million points and a million segment polygons and a million everything. But now we want to see it differently. Now we want to see it from the top level. So from the top level, these are the primary curves and surfaces. Here are the final surfaces. Everything in the middle is the blending setup. I take this, I put it right below my primary curves and surfaces, and everything in here, everything goes into the blending setup. And this is the workspace. Turn off everything. Here are my layouts, here are my control sketches. I mostly do the main lines of the design need to be set in here. The main lines of the design is the primary curves and surfaces. You will need to look at this and model at this level. You will need to be familiar with what happens at this level. You should like the surfaces you make at this level. You should like your curves and you should like the surfaces. If you don't, you will not like the final surfaces. There's one more thing we will want to look at when we're editing, when we're happy with the structure and we want to edit the actual design. There's one more thing we want to look at, and that is that in the blending setup, we don't edit the start and end points typically, but we do edit the cut points because the cut points control the blends. So the cut points is something we want to have easy access to. I'm going to take them and I'm going to move them to the top of the blending setup, so that when I open the blending setup, the first thing I see is my cut points. When we created the original group of 3 curves to copy paste, first we did the start points and end points, because that was an easy explanation of what a point on curve is, and since we needed it, I figured we would start with those. We don't edit them very often, so it was less work. But now that we know what they are, we can put the cuts ahead of it. And this right here is a pretty effective setup to work with. I know what I'm working. Now I know what I'm working with, and now I can find the things to edit it very quickly. As a matter of fact, I don't often, once you like your primary curves and surfaces and you want to work with the final surfaces, you turn off the curves and surfaces, turn on the cut points, and then this is the final editing setup. But you have to know what's happening under the hood. So the series of tutorials has made you create all the objects, organize them in a way that made sense for the stage we were at, and now we have the final setup. Now that we have the final setup, we are ready to create view sets. A view set is created with a bunch of links. We're only going to need folders to put them in. So let's create a couple folders. Call the top one view sets. Put all of these inside. We'll name them as we use them. And the first one we're going to create is the view set final surfaces. Now you can really create these in any order you like, but I'm going to tell you why I make this one first after I make it. I'm going to open these 3 folders. Now they're together. There's no grids in between. But if I want to select everything, I do a shift select, and I have to control click to remove the folders. Okay, now I've done that. I hit the link tool right here. It has to be make link, not the other ones. It has to be make link. I click it. It has created all of these. Immediately, notice that they're still selected. So immediately, I put them in this viewset folder. They're inside, but they're still selected. The very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these links, and I'm going to give them their own placement. I'm going to go X 800. Yeah, 800 is fine. Close this back up. And now what do I have? In the workspace, I can hide the final surfaces, but I still see them from the view sets. So now I have a clear workspace. I could edit some of these curves, and I still see the final result. So that's very useful, because as you're making changes here, you can see if the final object still works. But it's also useful to look at other stages of the model. Let's do another one. Let's see, what's another thing that's very useful to look at as we're editing all these things? Well, it's very useful to see the primary curves and surfaces. So but here, I'm gonna give them each a folder. So when I do the primary curves, steal the name, go right here, and call this view, primary curves, give it some zeros. Now, and here I'm going to do the same thing with the links. I'm going to open these folders, shift select, remove the folders, make links, and this time in the X, I'm going to put them at 1600. I'm going to click to finish this here. To click out of here, I'm not going to click in the window. That would lose my selection. I'm going to click right here. So everything is still selected. I just drop it into here. Close all of these back. Close in here. Close the curves. And now I'm going to grab the surfaces. Hey, I don't have to open any folders for the surfaces. They're all just right here. That is great. I'm going to make all the links. I'm also going to put them at 1600 because they don't interfere with the curves, and it's really nice to see them together, actually. So I'm going to hit enter, click in here, and then I'm going to grab these and put them in this folder. I'm going to steal the name from right above, paste it in here, and change curves to surfaces. Okay. I'm going to save this. I've already changed the name. This is the file I'll be sharing. Okay, so in the example I showed you before, I made a lot of these view sets for various things. And it is useful. But for now, I want to show you how this works in practice. How this works in practice is I'm going to edit this curve again. The curve that was giving me trouble last time. This time I'm going to be a little bit more careful. And now I can see the final surfaces next to it in the direction that matters when I'm editing this curve, and I can see the primary surfaces. So here, first of all, last time I tried to change this 30 to 50, but I did 500, and after that it was very tough to fix. So I'm going to do 50 carefully this time, just 50. Okay, 50 was okay. It didn't get too distorted. It didn't jump from being curved to being kind of a parallelogram. So now I'm going to carefully delete the equal constraint that's in the middle. It's a little bit tough to see, right? Let's use the section view. It'll remove some things, so I only see what's below. Okay, so this is the equal constraints that sets the middle equal to the side. I'm going to delete that, and it updated pretty fast. Okay, I'm going to resize this guy. And I'm going to say 100. See, this time I got lucky. I put in 10 instead of 100, but it was able to handle it. You know what? Actually, that's funny. So I'm going to keep it there. And now I can do 500 right here. 500, no problem. It's funny looking. Let's keep it. Let's close this and take a look at it. So this is what it means to edit in the final setup. I only look at the meaningful, relevant objects right here, and immediately I keep track of what happened in the final result. And if you get an unexpected result here, if something goes wrong, the first thing you should do is say, what did this change do to my primary surfaces? And so here I can see that this change to my primary surfaces really changed this curve over here, and then the surfaces followed. In this case, the blend is still reasonable. I'm showing it at low quality, but there's no major problems with it aside from the fact that it's very roughly tessellated. It seems to be working okay. Let's edit some more. Change this again. But this time I'm going to be a little bit more reasonable. I'm going to do 200 on this. And this guy, I'm going to do the 100 that I said I was going to do. Okay. And see, very quickly I can look on the side and see what's happening. I can also turn off the section view, and I can see what it's doing to the whole model. This is a good way to work, because this way you only turn on the things that are relevant in the workspace, and you don't have to do a lot of juggling and turning everything on and off. You always see the consequences of your actions. Let's make a couple more view sets. What could we make a view set of? Well, we took care of showing the primary curves and surfaces. That's right here. And we took care of the final surfaces. So these are the main ones, right? But we didn't do anything for the layouts and control sketches, and here what's unfortunate. If you try to use the method of copying links for sketches and creating these side views, it won't work. What it will do is it will reset the coordinates of all the sketches and just make a mess. It's really sad. So that's why I do not make view sets for these objects. I leave them in the workspace. The workspace is the only place we can find them. Later, I hope to find a workaround, but right now it just doesn't work. Creating view sets for these things does not work. And that's because of the way FreeCAD handles sketches. I can't fix that myself, easily anyway. And I use the FreeCAD sketches as they are. But what could we add to here? Remember when I said when we're modeling, this is almost everything we need to control the model, with the exception of the point on curve cuts. So right there, that's a great idea. Let's take all these point on curve cuts, all of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but I select them all at the same time. I hit Control to deselect the folder. I have them all. And now I'm going to make link. They're all right here. Where am I going to put them? I could put them floating in space, but that's not great. I'm just going to put them on top of the curves. That's actually really neat because these points cut these curves. So that is a great place to look at them. And here I'm going to say View Blending Cut Points. So this is pretty good. This is pretty good. I don't often, unless I'm editing these points, I don't have to come in here and turn them on. If I just want to keep track of where they are, I can just see them right here on top of the surfaces that they actually cut. I can see that they're all linked. I can see where they are on the curves. And here's a really funny thing about these ones. These linked objects here, they get all their properties from the original objects. So when you look in their properties here, you can see that it's getting all the link properties are right here. You don't edit from here typically. If you wanted to find, say you wanted to know what's happening with this cubic surface. Well, this is just the link. I clicked it and it gives me the link. It found it in the view sets. It did not find it in the original folder. How do I find the real object and turn it on in the workspace? Let's back off. I want to find something in these view sets and I want to turn it on in here. I want the real object, not just the link. I click this object. Where's the real object? It's right here. It's right at the top in the link. It's this linked object. If I click this once, it just highlights. If I click this twice, it has now found the real object. And all I have to do is hit spacebar and it turns on the original. Say I wanted to look at this and I also wanted to turn on this object in the workspace. I click it here, click, it found it, hit spacebar, and there we go, I have it. So I can use the view sets as a dictionary to find the things I want to activate in the workspace. Let me turn these back off. Okay, so that's one way to use it. It's not the way I use most. I do that sometimes, but most of the time, I know where things are because I've organized them in a way that's very easy to find the things that I want. But there's one more good advantage to having these views here, and that is, even though the properties are linked, follow from the original objects, there are some things you can do directly from the link. This point right here shows me what the U value is. Now remember, this is one of my leader points in red. And because this shows me the value right here, I can actually edit this from the link. See, it's 0.4 right now. That means that it's 0.4 away from the corner. I can make it 0.1. I just edited the final surfaces and everything in between from a link object in a view set, and everything updated, including the original. See, this is just a copy. If I want to find the original, I double click the link here and I hit spacebar. So I could have come in here, turned on this point, and then turned on all the points, found the one that I want, then edited it, but I can also find it directly from the view set. This is not easy, by the way. This is not easy. I don't expect you to find it easy. I'm just showing you what's possible if you learn the system. If you learn the system, you will understand these folders. You will understand these view sets, and you will have various ways to find and manipulate the objects. So I don't want to make this too long. I'm going to stop right here. Later we're going to keep making more view sets of this, tweak it just right, and then finally we're going to move this patch into the utilities folder and move on to other things. We're going to make a flat cap for the bottom, and we're going to make a rounded cap for the top. Catch you next time. I'm going to save this, and this is the file I'm going to share.